and today we're going to read our book gonna be called Martin Luther King Jr. Day. On the third Monday of January, we celebrate the birthday of an important American, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Dr. King worked hard to change laws and attitudes that were unfair and hurtful to Black people. In his heart, he knew that all people should be treated with fairness and respect. Fairness was important to Martin Luther King. Martin Luther King Jr. was born on January 15, 1929, in Atlanta, Georgia. His mother hugged her beautiful baby boy. His father was so happy he jumped up and touched the ceiling. Martin's parents were living with his mother's parents in a big house on Auburn Avenue. Martin already had an older sister. The next year, his younger brother was born. Martin's grandfather was the pastor at Ebenezer Baptist Church. When Martin was 2, his grandfather died. Martin's father, Martin Luther King Sr., became the new pastor of the church. 30 years later, Martin also became a pastor at the same church. Martin's family knew very little about their ancestor family members who lived a long time ago, but like most Black Americans, they knew that many of their ancestors probably had been slaves. For hundreds of years, African people were brought to America to work as slaves. Women, men, and children were captured in Africa and taken away from their families and home. They were chained up and put on crowded ships. If they survived the terrible voyage across the ocean, they were sold as slaves. When they reached America in 1865, slavery finally ended in the United States. But when Martin Luther King was born, there were still many serious problems left over from the time of slavery. Especially in the South, Black people were treated as if they were not as good as white people. Black people were kept separate or segregated from white people. In the South, segregation was everywhere. Neighborhoods, churches, schools, swimming pools, libraries, parks, restaurants, buses, stores, restrooms, elevator, water fountains. The list went on and on. It was very unfair. It was very hurtful, and Black people were getting tired of it. Martin was growing up with people who loved and respected him. He didn't realize at first there were other people who might feel different about him. When Martin was 6, he had a white friend whose father owned a store across the street from Martin's house. One day, the friend told Martin that they could no longer play together. The friend's father wouldn't allow it. At dinner that evening, Martin asked his parents why this happened. Sadly, they explained that it was because Martin's skin was black. Martin was shocked. It was so unfair. It was so hurtful. In his heart, he knew that the color of a person's skin should not matter to real friends. Friendship was important to Martin Luther King. Martin liked school. He was such a good student. He allowed to skip 2 grades. When he got to college, he found that the work was much harder, but he knew what to do. He just worked harder than ever. While he was in college, Martin decided he wanted to be a minister like his father. Martin preached his first sermon at Ebenezer Baptist Church. It was a great success. After graduating from college, Martin went to a seminary, a special school for people who wanted to be ministers. There, Martin learned that peaceful ways are much more powerful than violence. Martin decided he would always try to love people, even those who treated him unfairly or hurt his feelings. When Martin graduated from the seminary, he was the top student in his class. He won a scholarship to attend graduate school at a big university. After several more years of study, he earned the highest degree a person can receive, a doctorate. Now he was called Dr. King. During the time, Martin met and fell in love with Coretta Scott, a talented young woman who was studying music. After their marriage, Martin was asked to be a pastor of the church in Montgomery, Alabama. Yolanda was the first of the King's 4 children, was born in 1955. She was followed by Martin, Dexter, and Bernice. The King loved their children and they wanted them to be treated with kindness and respect. On December 1, 1955, an important event happened in Montgomery. A black woman named Rosa Parks got on the bus to go home from work. She sat down on a seat in the colored section at the back of the bus. Soon all the seats in both the colored section and the white section are full. Then a white man boarded the bus. The driver told Mrs. Park that she had to give up her seat. When she refused, she was arrested. The black people of Montgomery decided to protest. They refused to ride the buses until the unfair rules changed. This was called a boycott, and Dr. King became its leader. And Montgomery bus boycott lasted 382 days, more than a year. When it was over, black people could sit anywhere they like on a bus, and they had no longer had to give up their seats to white people. They had won an important victory, and they had won it peacefully. In 1960, Dr. King was asked to come back to Atlanta, Georgia. He became co-pastor with his father at Ebenezer Baptist Church. Also, Dr. King was the president of an important new civil rights group. This group wanted black people to have the same rights that white Americans have. In his heart, he knew that Americans of all colors should have the same rights. Equal rights were important to Martin Luther King. At this time, more and more white people were joining black people in the work for equal rights. Black and white students together held sit-ins at lunch corners were white only. They simply sat down and waited to be served. Day after day, the students returned to sit and wait. Sometimes they also sang songs like "We Shall Overcome." When Dr. King joined a sit-in at lunch corner in Atlanta, he was arrested and put in jail for several days. In the spring of 1963, Dr. King went to Birmingham, Alabama, one of the most segregated cities in the South. Dr. King helped black people their planned protest marches. He always remained the marches not to use any kind of violence. Thousands of children and young people joined the peaceful march, but one day police suddenly turned fire hoses and attacked dogs into the marchers. People across America were horrified. 2 days later, another march began. This time, police refused to follow orders to attack the marches. Soon afterwards, life began to get better for Black people in Birmingham, thanks to the courage of Dr. King and those who marched with him. In his heart, he knew that peaceful protest is more powerful than violence. No violence was important to Martin Luther King. During the summer of 1963, Dr. King organized a march on Washington. More than 250,000 people, Black and white, rich and poor, came to our national capital on August 28th. They all marched to the Lincoln Memorial. There they heard many speeches about the importance of equal rights for all Americans. The one speech that everyone still remembers was given by Dr. King. I have a dream that one day little Black boys and Black girls will be able to join hands with little white boys and white girls as sisters and brothers. I have a dream today. In his heart, he knew that his dream of a better America would come true someday. Dreams were important to Martin Luther King. In 1964, an important Civil Rights Act was signed by the President of the United States. Segregation was now against the law. Neighborhood churches, parks, swimming pools, library, park, restaurant, buses, store, restroom, elevator, water fountain. At last, Black people were free to go anywhere they choose. Later, 1964, Dr. King was given the Nobel Peace Prize, the greatest of many honors. This award is given to those who have done the most to bring peace to the world. Dr. King said the award really belonged to the thousands of people who had worked with him. He gave the prize money, $54,000, to groups working for civil rights. In 1965, Dr. King went to Selma, Alabama to help Black people to vote. Some white people did not want Black people to vote in an election. Trouble soon began. Dr. King called for a more protest march for Selma and Montgomery, the state capital, Again, police attacked the marchers again. People across America were very upset when they heard the news. Hundreds of people, Black and white, rushed to the summit to join the march. The President of the United States sent 1,800 soldiers to protect the marchers. When the marchers finally arrived in Montgomery, they had walked over 50 miles in 5 days, and they had won the support of millions of Americans. The president now began to work for a law that would make it easier for Black people to register and vote. On April 3, 1968, Dr. King went to Memphis, Tennessee. Black sanitation workers there had asked him to help with a march for fair play. The night after he arrived, Dr. King gave a speech. He said that he knew life would soon get better for Black people in America. I've been to the mountain top. I've seen the promised land. You might not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as the people will get to the promised land. The next day, Dr. King was shot and killed. Dr. King was 39 years old when he died. During his short life, he had worked hard. Thousands for other people of all color had worked with him Together, they have been able to change some of the laws and attitudes that were unfair and hurtful to Black people. But the work was not finished. It would be up to others to carry on the work for Dr. King. It would be up to others to make peace. In his heart, he knew that people of all colors can live together in peace and harmony. Peace was important to Martin Luther King. When we celebrate the birthday of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., remember his dream. How can we keep the dream alive? In our hearts, we know that we can treat all people with fairness and respect. We can carry on the work of Martin Luther King. And that's the end of Martin Luther King Jr. Day, guys. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Turn on the notification bell, and I'll see you next time. Bye!